What's up, guys? We're back today with a different type of video from what we've been posting recently, or really within the last year or so. More of an installation sort of guide video sort of thing. But today we're going to be working on this. This is a metal air intake manifold for my truck here. But right now I'm struggling with a coolant problem. You see that puddle of coolant right there? Well, my intake manifold has been leaking from the thermostat housing over here. So a common issue on these intakes is that they will start leaking right down here, where the metal part of the intake meets the plastic. So obviously plastic intake with this metal crossover bar for your coolant paths, but it does have that issue of cracking or warping right where that metal meets the plastic there. So I believe that's where we're leaking from right now. As we're replacing the gaskets and everything, it got a little bit better, but it's been leaking and leaking, and I got to do something about it. So I was seeing what I could do. I could just replace the plastic with another plastic one, spend the $150, get exactly the same thing. Or a better option, I think, is putting this aluminum one on. This came out of a 99 F150 with the 5.4 Triton. The only reason, or that's the only year that these have metal intakes that will work with the later two valve like mine, because it has these intake ports basically, which they're more of an oblong, rectangle, ovalish shape rather than a little circle. I am going to throw this on and we're going to see how it goes. Y'all are going to come along for the ride. And if you're new here, leave a like and subscribe. I do some of this stuff every once in a while, along with all my racing stuff that I also do. So obviously first you're going to have to pull off your throttle body, and it's just a few 4 bolts on there. Pull it off, springs, and then you're also going to have to get the bracket off of there as well. And then you can pull that whole thing off out of your way. No issues there. Then next, we're going to go ahead and get the rest of our throttle body holder out of there, top of the intake manifold sort of. It's a little bit of a pain to get to some of those bolts. You need either sometimes a short extension or just a wrench is the best way to get in there. Vice grips also work if I have needle nose ones and you really can't get in there. Now make sure you go and unplug all of your fuel injectors, unplug all of your coil packs all at one time. Make sure they're all done, all unplugged, so you don't have to worry about it once you start pulling everything else apart. Fuel rail will come out and up really easy. On your truck, you want to make sure that you get the fuel lines completely out and disconnected before you start really messing with this, pulling this out. It gets a whole lot more difficult when everything's moving all around while you're trying to get those fuel lines out. Coil packs, you're just going to want to take those little bolts out and just pop them right out. Just be careful. You want to make sure you pull those out before you pull the intake, though, or you will destroy your coil packs. Now, obviously, you're also going to need to get your intake bolts out. Really easy. Just zip them out real quick, and then you can just pick it all up at once, wiggle it out over the alternator, or remove the alternator if you are putting a metal one in. You're going to have to do it anyway. So now, while we have that one out, you can see this plug here. We need to fill on this because we had this in here. And depending on your truck, you might need to keep this or not. My truck doesn't have this like little line. So what we do, we just put a little plug in there, some thread locker, and some Teflon tape to make sure it doesn't leak. And then the only other thing that's really different on here is your heater core hose line. On this, it's a little smaller and everything. On my intake that was on it, it's a lot bigger. So the way we're fixing that is I got a little adapter. So we're gonna run some hose from here and then hose it, or then it'll go straight into the other hose that's already in there on the truck, and it should seal up all good. But that is the only real differences between the two. All right, so I got the intake test fitted in here, and I got our little adapter on. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna use this little piece of tubing that I had laying around basically. We're gonna put it on that nipple there, and then with the shape of it, should come back be twisted a little bit more, but it won't kink anything. So that way that all of this will still have the correct flow and everything. It is just the heater core, so it's not a huge issue, but we still want to make sure it's all flowing correctly and there's no kinks in the line. So I'm going to get the rest of this buttoned up and we'll see where we're at from there. Now once we got this hose on back here to go back up into there. We're not going to touch that yet. We also have our PCV hose, which you could cut down. I flipped this little end piece here, and that way it goes back a little further, but it'll reach there without any issue. Now I threw all the bolts in to get them a little bit finger tight. Now we're going to go around and torque them all. Make sure you torque them, because otherwise you're going to have leaking issues, which is what I was already having. So that's why I got the metal intake, to hopefully fix that. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to torque them all. I'll make sure you put your thermostat in there and everything, so you actually have a thermostat. Obviously you're going to need that, but then you want to go around, torque them all, and then put your fuel rail back in, then put your coil packs back in, and yeah, we will get to that. So we got that in and bolted down. I put the torque specs and like the way you're supposed to do it up on the screen here, and then now we're just gonna pretty much button everything up, throw the coil packs in, put the fuel rail back in, throw the throttle body and everything back on there, and then we will be done with this. Alright, so now that I have our coil packs and our fuel rail in, which you guys saw pull apart, and I'm sure you've done it, it's not that difficult. But now that I have them in, I can see that I'm having a little bit of issue with our solution to our heater core issue. I just have that hose kind of kinked up in there. I'm just gonna put it on the other side of the fuel rail, and that should solve it. I think that way I'll be able to get plenty of room to get it up and over here, because it is kind of being pinched right now. But other than that, I did push this piece here, our PVC hose, back and up a little bit. It's not connected right now, but once it's connected, it's pretty decently snug and secure. Not ideal, but I mean, that should be something you grab if you are going to pull one of these from the junkyard, or if you are if you're buying one yourself. I'd recommend doing that. But this works either too. You could also cut down the tube a bit, but it's not something I'm really too worried about. So I'm going to put that on the other side, and then we are pretty much almost there. We just got to put our we got to throw the alternator back on, because I had to pull that off, and then the throttle body, and that'll be pretty much it. Alright, so this is what our finished solution for our heater core looks like. As you can see, it's a little wonky, but it works pretty great. I mean, it's not kinked anywhere. It should have good flow all the way through, so we shouldn't have any issues with that. I'm getting all these electrical connectors all hooked up on the coil packs and the fuel injectors. I'm going to throw the alternator back in, and then throttle body, and we will be done with this little project here. Just about finished buttoning everything up, but that's basically it. I mean, I just got to put everything back where it was. I did switch this one out for one I had on the other intake, where your cables go for your intake or your throttle body, because the one I have that was on here is little, and it had one hole that matched up, so that one makes it a whole lot steadier and more gooder. But yeah, that's basically it. Pretty simple once you work out the few little kinks like that plug you needed, and then for the heater core line. But other than that, that's it.